On to one of the most pivotal topics in Wales, which I saw recently. So there's two things to go over now to finish off. This is quite interesting. So in Wales, they've recently launched, the journalist known as Will Hayward has launched a new fund, I believe, and I believe this is from the government. So again, where's this fund coming from? If it's going to be some kind of fund, it's likely going to be taxpayer funded, right? To help aspiring journalists get on the ladder, which in theory is a great thing, right? Because there's, especially with regards to journalism in Wales, it's almost a very state-run, seemingly. You don't see, you're seeing a rise of citizen journalists and stuff like that at the moment, but no real, Wales doesn't have, for good or for worse, like a Tucker Carlson figure, I don't think, you know what I mean? Where again, a journalist that is really holding their own establishment to account and really putting across like true opposition to really hold them to account, whether you agree with his points or not. And in many instances, I don't think that I actually do. But it's forcing dialogue that you'd never get if all of the journalists were just, state puppet question askers. So again, this fund to help aspiring journalists get on the ladder, good thing in theory, but it's weird. As Doge Wales, Senedd Waste guys pointed out, there's a bit of a catch. The work has to be related to one of Will Hayward's pre-chosen topics. There's 4 of them. So to qualify for this fund, subject or investigation must be on one of these 4 things: climate change and biodiversity loss, poverty, the rise of the far right and or political extremism, and exposing misinformation, disinformation, and or fact-checking. Already you're seeing why I'm sort of like, looking a little bit disappointed, or kind of the look of like, I told you so. It's like, finally, there's a fund here that seems to be funding journalists that want to do more work of the regime. That's what it seems to be, which is very, very concerning. Obviously, because a journalist, I believe Matt Taibbi said, it's you tell the story. You tell the story. The story leads the way, no matter whether it's aligns with your biases or is against your biases, whatever it may be. The story is king. The story is the leader. But again, there's some notable omissions from this list, as you may know. The biggest one, poverty is a big one. Climate change is a very, very small issue being masqueraded as a big one in order to extract more tax money. It's funny how it puts climate change and biodiversity loss in there when one of the biggest things we're doing to combat climate change is get solar panels and wind turbines everywhere, which, destroy habitats and kill birds and all of these things at an alarming rates. You've gone about biodiversity loss, but you're getting rid of all the grass, you're getting rid of all the birds because they're being chopped up by wind turbines, and you're putting these mechanical monsters in the field. Yeah, okay. But immigration, as they mentioned here, is by far the main issue affecting politics right now. Whether you like it or not, whatever side of the political aisle you fall on, that is true. That is true. It's by far the biggest issue. And one notable omission you'll see here, there's nothing here on nation of sanctuary. Ready to make Wales a nation of sanctuary, especially, being against nation of sanctuary and all of these things. As they point out, cheap labour from abroad has suppressed Welsh workers' wages, unfairly pricing them out of many jobs. This is obviously a main cause of poverty, so perhaps Hayward will fund a piece of work along these lines. Perhaps he won't. Will Hayward, from when you listen to him, at least from the brief bits that I've listened to him, he's very much so more on the side of the political left, I would say. He had an interview with one of the ministers that was responsible for bringing in the 20-mile-per-hour blanket system. And he couldn't fawn over him enough from what I was saying. You brought in the system. It's objectively saved lives. It's all of this stuff. So again, very much so seemingly, and I like how they put journalist when they first mention Bill, they say journalist. Because again, it makes you wonder, whether there's a certain bias that's coming from this fund or coming for this fund, and a certain bias they're trying to put onto aspiring journalists that are coming up, right? The rise of the far right and political extremism. I like to say and or political extremism. So again, no mention. I'm assuming it would fall into the political extremism headline. But again, no mention of far left, Antifa, communism, socialism, none of those things, right? exposing misinformation, disinformation. Usually the people that use those terms, do so simply because it's information that they don't like. I don't like the terms, I think I've said this before, I don't like the terms misinformation and disinformation anymore, because for the same reason that I mentioned before why I don't like making Hitler comparisons. Because once these words used to mean something, now they mean nothing because they've been shown to have been misused in such big ways. So we need new terms now. Just say that it's incorrect. There's no, sorry, I know I'm tripping on my words. There's no room for politicization there. It's just incorrect or correct information. Successful applicants will be paid between £150 and £500 for their time, depending on the depth of the investigation required. They must also have some journalistic training. So they also point out with the Senate election in 10 months' time, Hayward warns the, quote, amount of misinformation will soar, unquote. He also says young people and those in most deprived areas are the, quote, main targets for this. Patronizing indeed. Patronizing indeed. Areas like mine that have been crippled seemingly by the policies that Will Hayward is a fan of. But yeah. And again, they said here, we would also be interested to learn how Hayward is funding this new initiative. Is he generously paying for it out of his own pocket, off the back of subscriptions to his well-plugged newsletter, or have sponsors come forward to meet the cost? So again, is it being sponsored by somebody? If so, who is sponsoring it? Is it, again, taxpayer funded? Who knows? Who the hell knows? He did correctly claim, however, that Wales is a limited media landscape, which is what I'm trying to do with this podcast, for example, trying to change that. But it's largely the result of legacy media organisations like BBC Wales and Hayward himself ignoring some of the scandalous ideological projects the Senate members fund. As I mentioned, he was a very big fan of the 20-mile-per-hour Susteren stuff. So I wonder if Will Hayward would like to take up this last story to do with political extremism, or potentially to do with immigration and all of these things, right? Maybe he'll call it for exposing misinformation or fact-checking. This was a video that was posted very recently. And I want you to watch this video. It was posted 5 days ago. And this is from a school in England. And the title of this video, it was recorded on Snapchat. You can tell by the style of banner that the text is in. You catch an POV, you catch an EDL member in SKL. So I'm not sure where the school is. I'm assuming that just stands for school. And what you'll find is there's a bunch of kids here. They are attacking a young white kid and then pouring a drink on his head as they sit there and laugh. They said they did this because he's in the EDL. And that's quite interesting because obviously the EDL doesn't exist anymore. So whether he says that he likes the EDL, whether he says that he likes the work of Tommy Robinson or whatever. But it's quite interesting to find this EDL member in school when now that organization doesn't exist anymore. But here's that video for you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to mute the music. So here it is. I'll play it one more time. You have here, they've just obviously beaten him and now they're pouring water on his head because he sat on the floor, turned around, and it does appear to be not that person, not being that person, but possibly one or two generations descended from people who, let's just say, are not native to this country. But this is okay. This is okay. So if you describe somebody as EDL or an enemy, then, especially if they're white, you can do whatever the hell you want to them. That's the kind of state that we live in now. There'll be a lot of people that will say that this was completely justified. There was absolutely nothing wrong with this. Obviously, we don't know the wider context of what was going on. We don't know if, the kid was attacking them. Saying things about their race or whatever it might have been. Who knows? Who knows? If you have any more context on this issue, please let me know. But I actually quoted this. I said, Piers Morgan, I was like, are you going to come on and call these kids vermin and call for severe retribution for waterboarding this young kid? Because this, ladies and gentlemen, should remind you of what happened to a young Syrian boy, the name of Jamal, who, from testimony in court, although the judge later ruled and said that the girls were liars, his classmates, and with the evidence that was presented, a lot of people like to get this confused when Tommy Robinson put his documentary silenced up on X and then he was put in prison for contempt of court. People mistakenly thought that it was because the things in the film were incorrect, and that's what he went to prison for. No, he went correct because he went to prison because he was ordered not to release the film. There was no, claim that anything in the film was false. He was ordered not to release it. And you have testimony in there that was recorded in hidden camera testimony from people in Huddersfield Council with regards to the incident involving Bailey, who's still in hiding, I believe, by the way, and all his family is. This incident happened years and years and years ago. He's still in hiding. And the girls who came forward in his class, the kids in his class came forward to testify that he'd attacked one of them with a hockey stick. He'd done all these heinous things. And allegedly, he said to Bailey that he was going to rape his sister. So Bailey just gave him a bit of schoolyard justice. As the older boy, as the bigger boy, and as the defender of his sister, defender of his family, gave him a little bit of schoolyard justice and just brought him down to the ground and poured a water bottle over his head. And Piers Morgan jumped on it and said that the Bailey was vermin. Said that he was a vermin. And said that it was waterboarding. Or the media, at least. The media, at least, it might not have been Piers Morgan specifically, said that the kid was waterboarded. And Piers Morgan then called for severe retribution. Bear in mind, Bailey at the time was 15. Bailey at the time was 15. Now, what happened in the aftermath of that incident is that a bunch of Muslims came to the school. They were threatening to, I believe they were threatening to behead the head teacher. They all ganged up around the school, threatening to do all these heinous things, threatening to kill Bailey. In the documentary Silence, by the way, you can actually see, I don't think it's up anywhere online now, the stacks that Tommy and his team had printed of the threats that Bailey and his family were receiving were about this high. You know, I'm about 4 feet off the ground here, I believe it was. Whether that was done for artistic effect, I don't know. But the threats they were receiving was in the thousands or the tens of thousands. They're going to rape his family, they're going to rape his sister, rape his mom, kill him, make him watch, burn his house down, all of these things. Heinous things from this community. Religion of peace, mind you. And as I said, Bailey and his family still in hiding. And Huddersfield Council paid 5-figure sums to the head teacher, to certain people who were working with Jamal specifically, to keep stum about it. I believe one guy was paid about 20 grand to stay stum about it. So where's the severe retribution? That's not what I'm calling for, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. But where's the severe retribution going to be for this kid? Are these children vermin? Should they face severe retribution? But of course this is fine, because it happened to a white guy, so just an evil oppressor, right? Anyway, that'll do it for today. Thank you. And by the way, on that video, ladies and gentlemen, you couldn't hear it because obviously I muted it. They were laughing and giggling to themselves the whole way, so they took glee in doing this, these young boys. I muted it just in case the video with the music in the background was going to, potentially get flagged for copyright or whatever.